Welcome to Sex and the Solo Girl. Join your host, her inner circle, and expert guests weekly for chats about dating, secure attachment, the solo lifestyle, doing relationships differently, and of course, sex. And here's your host, Janice Formichella.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Lena, back to the shows.
Thank you.
How to know who to date. This is going to be really fun. I think a lot of people fly by the seat of their pants when it comes to dating. I happen to know that because I have started seeing a lot of clients who are dating. So I've expanded beyond breakups. In fact, I have a few right now who I worked with on their breakup who now want to date again. And so I do know that
great.
It can be a bit confusing, or there's a lot to consider. And so Lena is here to help you get off on the right foot. Before we get into it, everybody, please remember that I've got a new website that is really great, and it goes into all of my projects, all of my coaching, and it's just janiceformichella.com. Please go over there, check it out, join my Patreon if you want to support my work. And Lena, your business is expanding as well. So where can people go and learn more about you?
Well, they can always find me at my website, which is lenaehrenberg.com, and that is LenaEhrenberg.com. And I'm also on Instagram at Have More Love.
Lena, what would you like people to learn from this episode?
I think what's really important and what I want to really offer to you is if you are someone who has not dated in a really long time, or if you are someone who's been dating a lot and you're just not connecting.
Mm-hmm. I hear that a lot.
You don't have to live like that. That is not your lot in life. It's not, if it were going to happen for me, it would have already. No, none of that. There are ways. I learned over a period of time how to date and how to date better than I was. And that's why I want to share what I've learned with all of you who are listening, and just to know that, because Janice, I think that's really the root. It's the root of it, because for a lot of people who aren't making the connection, we can start to feel like, look at everybody else in the world and look at me.
And there's no one good left. That is one of the most common things that I hear. Oh, well, thank you for that. Are you seeing anyone right now?
I'm seeing a couple of people right now.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, we like to share on this show.
Yeah,
I know I do. The world knows a lot about my sex life, which I love. I have to say, having grown up Mormon and then leaving and just living a life where I felt that like I had to hide so much, it is very liberating to be this open. My intention.
I just have to say, sorry for me. I'm seeing a couple of people because I'm in very early stages right now.
Awesome.
So different conversation from what Janice, what we might be talking about.
No, I mean, that's actually really, really great. You are actively out there. So that's wonderful.
And I do what I teach. And I teach what I do.
Yeah,
right? That's the thing.
I do. I'm not perfect, but pretty close.
Yeah.
My intention is to support people in avoiding some quote unquote mistakes. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but avoiding some mistakes when it comes to the early process of dating, because I do tend to see a lot of the same sorts of things that hold people back from connections or having fun, things that stress people out about the process that don't really have to. So that's what I would like to share with people today. Okay. Let's get into it, so to speak. Lena, you have a method called the 3 Essentials to help you meet your right match. And the 3 Essentials are preparation, communication, and activation. I'm really looking forward to learning more about this. So first of all, I guess, how did you come up with this?
Well, I started to really look at how how I was dating. And I'm really like a lot of my clients, and a lot of my clients are really like me. And we really like to break things down and
Okay.
understand, like get kind of a big overall thing, get it down into like bite-sized chunks. And so when we started to really break things down and I really looked at it, there are specific steps that we all go through when we're getting out and starting to date. And so I started to look at, okay, first there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. And then I started to fill in, oh, but you have to start, you start with your first step, and your first step is going to take you to all your other steps. And I just started to find things that were missing. So that's how I started to look at filling in the gaps. And then I realized that, at least for my thought process, there are three kind of big sections of early stage dating.
Yeah, and I want to point that out. This is really great because it is in the very early stages, preparing yourself. And so this is especially helpful. I think there's a lot of content out there about first dates, about red flags, about early days, and this is before any of that takes place to get off on the right foot.
Exactly. And you bring up red flags, and you know that I'm also talking about green flags a lot.
Yes.
So that's the other thing too. But the thing about the focus on red flags is it's kind of the same thing as the focus on chemistry. And you and I talk about that a lot too, right?
We do, yes.
So that was part of really how I figured out what was missing, because talking about red flags is really putting the focus on the other person, isn't it? Right? What is the problem here?
Yeah. What is wrong with people?
What is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? Right? And so then the focus on chemistry is about, well, how are we going to be together? And I thought, oh, you know what's missing? We need to be starting with ourselves. We need to be starting with, who am I? And how do I live? And who do I want to be with? Right? But if I don't start with really knowing who I am and then go out into the world from being me, then, and here's another thing I want your listeners to know right now, is that a lot of why dating hasn't been fruitful for you is that you've been doing what the world says, and you've been putting all your focus on the other people and finding the person who wants you, and what's wrong with all the other people. Where is my person? So if you can really go out into the world and say, this is who I am, and this is how I be, that's going to set you up so much on such a firmer foundation for when you start meeting people. And it's a big part of your work too, Janice.
It is. And that's why I always am telling people the time after a breakup is an opportunity to learn so much about yourself and what you want your life to be like, and what you want your future relationships to be like. The 3-part method is preparation, communication, and activation. Let's talk about step 1, preparation. And another thing, and this has to do a lot with values from what I understand. And Lena and I have done actually quite a bit of content around values since we've been doing content together. And one of them is an episode on Sex and the Solo Girl called Values in Dating, and that would be episode 9. So please, and that was a really, really good episode. Also, I was thinking yesterday, talking about your breakup, that was an episode we did a couple years back, and that was brilliant. I know that doesn't necessarily apply here, everyone, but go check out Breakups, Broken Hearts, and Moving On, and look at talking about your breakup, because that was a really good episode that I did with Lena. So, Lena, let's talk about preparation and values and what to do before you even go on the first date.
The first thing that I like to offer to people is before you even get into the values, because that can sound kind of heavy sometimes. It's like, what do you like? What are you curious about? What could you talk about day in and day out, right? Just start to really actively notice yourself. And here's the thing though, you've got a lot of listeners who are so good at having done this work a lot already. So
Well, if you're listening to these types of podcasts, you're receptive to it as well.
exactly. But it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like asking yourself the question, what do I want? Because a lot of times you'll realize that you might not always know what you want, right? And that's the other thing about knowing who you want to date as well, is like a lot of times you might not really be sure who that looks like, what that looks like, because you're not sure about what you ultimately want for your life.
Okay.
So part of the process that I always go through is not only what are your values, but how do you want to live? What's important to you? And literally, how do you want to live? Some people want to live in cities. Some people want to live in the country. Some people want to live in somewhere in between, right? That's going to make a big impression. Be so aware of yourself. When I was preparing and doing my values work, what I came up with, and then, look here, just to kind of bring it all together, we all have a lot of values in the world and for the world. But in order for that to be manageable for you, you do have to get them down. When you're thinking about how do I apply this to dating, try to narrow it down to your top 5, because it's really hard to find someone who matches all of your values. And it's okay. I don't believe that we have to all have the exact same values as our partners. What I do believe, because I've learned this, is that we can't have opposing values.
Okay.
And I'll show you, and I'll tell you what that means.
Right.
So I was dating someone for a while, and I think it was about, I don't know, I think we were 4 or 5 months in, maybe a little longer. And I hold a value around communication, good, clear, useful communication.
Useful. And it seems like this might be a no-brainer, but I mean, it's not. Some people
it's huge.
don't work on it at all. I mean, some people even avoid it. So
exactly. And it's something, and here's the thing, it's such a no-brainer that we don't think about it ahead of time, and all of a sudden we wind up in relationships with people and we realize we're just not communicating properly, but we didn't actively look for that in the beginning stages. It seemed, oh, it's okay, it's fine. But now all of a sudden you're further along, it becomes an issue. So we were talking one night and we were having a conversation, and I asked him a question and he didn't respond. And so I looked at him and he just seemed distracted.
Right.
And,
avoiding it.
And I said, oh, and so I asked him the question again. I said, oh, maybe you didn't hear me. I just asked you this. And he looked at me, but he still kind of looked at me the way you don't look at someone. And so I said, did you hear me? Did you hear my question? And he said something, not a direct quote, but something to the effect of, oh, come on, you have to understand that when you talk, I don't listen.
There you go.
I thought he was joking.
Hell? I think you've told me this before. So wait.
Well, it was a while ago. I could have told you this before, but the point is, I thought he was joking.
Oh my God.
I really thought he was joking, because I thought, how do you say that to somebody? So fast forward to months later, when the relationship finally did end, and when I was doing my, they talk about year-end reviews. When I was doing my relationship end review, that story came to me. That moment, that evening came back to me so clearly. And I said, oh my gosh, he wasn't joking. And he was letting me know that he and I have opposing values
I mean, what did he
around
even
communication.
mean? Because how can you say that?
I don't know, but other things that happened showed me the same thing. Like we were just not communicating well. And at the time, I wouldn't do it now, but at the time, I let it go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like another person I was dating years before that who said something to me one day just off the cuff about, well, all couples fight. Fighting is just part of being in a relationship. And I said,
I have
don't
a
believe
lot
that.
of feelings about when people say that. Go
Yeah.
on.
And I said, I don't believe that. Disagreements? Absolutely.
I think that I know
Fights?
this mindset.
No.
And that is people who fight with their partners have that mindset. One thing I say, and then we're going to take a quick commercial break, is a lot of people say relationships are work. And I like to say, of course, but it doesn't have to be hard work all the time. You have to show up as the best version of yourself, which that takes some intention and perhaps work, but it's meant to be joyful.
Not working like a struggle or this is work.
Yes.
Hard. Yeah, exactly.
Love it. So, but we're not talking about the depth of relationships. We're talking about the preparatory part. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the other two parts of Lena's method, which are communication and activation. And Lena, just one more time, can you let people know what your website and Insta are?
My website is lenaehrenberg.com. Check the show notes, please, for the spelling. And I'm on Insta at Have More Love.
A lot of you know that I am a breakup coach, but did you also know that I work one-on-one with singles to maximize their solo chapter of life? My program, Single and Secure, offers customized packages that include things like becoming securely attached, visualization and manifestation for the future, learning to embrace and love your single life, getting ready to date again, self-pleasure, preparing for your next relationship. Let's have a chat to talk about how Single and Secure can add fun and power to your life. Schedule your free intro call using the link at the top of my show notes.
We just talked about preparation when it comes to getting ready to date, knowing who to date, because you got to know yourself before you can know someone else. Now we're going to talk about the next two steps, communication and activation. Tell me about this part of the method.
Okay, so a lot of this is going to be really pertinent for people who are on apps or online.
Brilliant, which is all of my clients ever.
Right, a lot of people, but some people, I have clients who, even though they might be using apps, they are still getting introduced, by friends, or they still want to do something more organic.
Yes,
to them.
everybody, please. Every time you step out of your house is an opportunity for making the world a better place, for maybe connecting with someone, to work on your confidence. So even if you're on the apps, please stay open to meeting people, or